Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. So this Monday, the 24th day of June, 2024. And we're going to begin by giving updates on three stories we dealt with earlier today. First of all, the horrific attack on churches and synagogues in the Dagestan area of Russia. Second, Prime Minister Netanyahu speaking to the Israeli parliament. The Knesset made it all the more clear that they're not going to stop fighting until Hamas's military is destroyed. And finally, remember the story about the Beirut airport? According to a whistleblower, is hiding some weapons, munitions from Iran, some explosives there. And the Lebanese government said, no, 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 you'll have to take a tour of the airport. We'll show you. Well, some really interesting things happened today when the tour of the airport by the press took place. And we will get to those. Plus, the Russian Navy may be monitoring Israel, we are told. And the U.S. government assumes that if you are religious, then you may be a terrorist. All right. Headline number one, death toll rises to 20 in the shooting attack in Russia's Dagestan region. Now, the head of the region visited the targeted churches and synagogues, and he declared that sleeper cells directed from abroad were behind the attack that also injured 46 people, but gave no further details. And again, this is not surprising. It's what we expected. There were sleeper cells here in this region, mostly an Islamic region there of Russia, that was responsible for the attack. We have an uptick, as we've been mentioning, of attacks against Jews and Christians worldwide. Is getting a lot worse, and unfortunately, it's going to even get more and more worse, because as we get closer to the time of the end, the Bible is very clear that the two groups of people who are going to be persecuted at the time of the end are Christians and Jews, two groups that by all odds should not exist. But supernaturally, God has kept the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob together as one cohesive nation. And also the believers in Jesus Christ are the greatest religion of the world number-wise. And so just as the Bible predicted, that's what we see. All right, headline number two, Netanyahu says the war won't end until Hamas is eliminated and the residents return home. He told the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, that he is committed to Biden's latest ceasefire proposal, but his position on the need to eliminate Hamas and restore security has not changed. In other words, Israel still hasn't changed its position. Eliminate Hamas and restore security. Those are absolutely necessary. They won't quit until those come to place. All right, he spoke this evening, that is Monday, before the Knesset plenum, in which he addressed the latest developments in the war versus Hamas. And he said, I promise you three things. First, we will not end the war until we return all of our hostages, 120 hostages, the living and the deceased. We are committed to the Israeli proposal, which President Biden has welcomed. Our position has not changed. Second, which does not contradict the first. We will not end the war until we eliminate Hamas, until we return the residents of the South and the North securely to their homes. And third, at any price and in any way, we will thwart Iran's intentions to destroy us, Netanyahu said. All right, well, we know from Scripture they won't be destroyed. God will make sure the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob exist until the second coming of Christ. And we will see what happens in the near future. It's going to be very interesting and sadly very tough on Israel, especially when a war breaks out in the northern part of the country. All right, let's give you an update on this Lebanese airport fiasco. Lebanon holds tour of the airport to prove there is no Hezbollah weapons stockpile, but they deny entry to the air cargo center. Ambassadors and journalists arrived at Beirut Rafi al-Hariri International Airport for a tour at the invitation of the Lebanese government ministers. However, they were denied access to the air cargo center, and the tour was abruptly halted. Tour included ambassadors from France, European Union, Egypt, Iraq, Iran, and India. On Monday, Lebanon conducted a tour for ambassadors and journalists at the airport a day after the British newspaper The Telegraph reported that Hezbollah is storing a stockpile of weapons that are supplied by Iran, and yet they weren't able to look at the air cargo center that was off limits. You really can't make this stuff up, can you? All right. Headline number four. Now, here's the fallout, as you can imagine. Panic at Beirut airport over potential Israeli attack. Whistleblower claims dangerous Iranian munitions stored at Beirut airport, as well as Hezbollah officials, sparking concerns Israel may attack. Okay, because of this, they're afraid of an attack on the airport. A whistleblower has revealed, like we mentioned, alarming information about munitions stockpiled, stored at Beirut's Rafi Hariri International Airport, raising concerns about a possible Israeli strike. The disclosure has ignited fears among local residents and the international community as tensions in the region continue to escalate. The anonymous whistleblower, reportedly a high-ranking official within the Lebanese security apparatus, stated that Hezbollah has been stockpiling advanced weaponry and ammunition within the airport's perimeter. This revelation has caused a wave of anxiety, given the airport's significance as a civilian transportation hub. Lebanese authorities have yet to confirm or deny these allegations. However, a senior official speaking on the condition of anonymity acknowledged, "We are investigating the claims, but the presence of munitions at a civilian airport poses a grave risk to public safety and national security." You think so? All right. Now, what about Israeli concerns and potential repercussions? Israel has long accused, we talked about this earlier, long accused Hezbollah of using civilian infrastructure to shield its military assets, a tactic that complicates any potential military response. As Israeli defense official, also preferring to remain unnamed, commented, "We have intelligence indicating that Hezbollah has embedded its military operation within civilian areas, including airports. This not only endangers Lebanese citizens, but also compels us to consider difficult operational decisions." Prime Minister Netanyahu has repeatedly emphasized the threat posed by Hezbollah's actions. In a recent statement, he warned Hezbollah's use of civilian infrastructure as cover for their weapons is a blatant violation of international law. We will not hesitate to take the necessary action to protect our citizens. Now, the possibility of an Israeli strike on Beirut's airport has stirred panic amongst the city residents. Local media outlets have reported an increase in flight cancellations and a heightened sense of unease among travelers and employees at the airport. Well, that's what happens when you let a terrorist group run your country and do what it wants to do. Now, headline 5 is interesting. Remember, we mentioned, was it yesterday, the story about the Russian Navy had a submarine was spotted off the coast of Miami. Well, here now we have a story. Is the Russian Navy monitoring an Israeli submarine? Reports suggest that 2 separate Russian vessels have been spotted near the German city of Kiel, where Israel's INS Dragon sub is conducting tests to determine the full extent of its capabilities. According to a report on Naval News, there are signs that Russian intelligence ships might be keeping tabs on Israel's new and advanced submarine. The report suggests that the ships Siberyakov and Vasily Tatishkev could be gathering intelligence on the INS Dragon during its sea trials phase. And again, this wouldn't be surprising at all, because recall, Russia is going to be the nation, the belligerent nation that does a last days invasion of Israel, along with a number of other nations. And so they will be on the warpath until the time of the end. Now, this next story is going to seem odd to so many people, but if you've been following what's going on in the United States, and particularly with this administration, it's really not that odd. Here's the report. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, called being religious is an indicator of domestic terrorism. This is from the Federalist. President Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, brainstormed about infiltrating local communities to spy on Americans and suggested being religious or in the military was an indicator of extremism and terrorism. Excerpts of documents obtained by the American First Legal AFL purportedly show. These excerpts, released Thursday by AFL, purport to show how in 2023, the DHS's newly created Homeland Intelligence Experts Group looked for ways to expand their spying on American citizens, including by trying to get their local communities into a non-threatening way to get fellow Americans to tattletale on their neighbors. The committee, in which John Brennan and James Clapper, both notorious for their participation in the Russia collusion hoax, as well as for falsely claiming Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, sat. Also, they sat on this committee. They also suggested that religious Americans, members of the military, and Trump supporters were possible security threats, according to segments of the documents released by AFL. If you ask researchers to dive into indicators of extremist and terrorism, they might indicate being in the military or religious, one segment states. This being identified as an indicator suggests we should be all the more worried about these. We need the space to talk about it honestly. According to the released excerpts, the group appeared to acknowledge a political advantage to having the political backdrop be tied to Trump. There is a political backdrop to all of this. It seems that most of the domestic terrorism threat now comes from supporters of the former president. Hmm. So if you're a supporter of Donald Trump, I guess, former president, you're a possible domestic terrorist, according to this. The segment states. It's not like you want a political advantage, but people have attacked the government and its institutions for the last 6 years. While the Biden administration agreed to disband the experts group in May after an AFL lawsuit, other federal agencies under Joe Biden have ramped up their efforts to criminalize opposition to the regime, as my colleague Jordan Boyd pointed out. Again, this is from the Federalist. The FBI has targeted Trump supporters under the auspices of fighting domestic terrorism, as a report from Newsweek explained in October, citing a dozen current or former government officials who specialize in terrorism. So, not only did the FBI expand its anti-government or anti-authority violent extremist classification to include the furtherance and of or social agendas, but it also created a new terrorism category, and that is one in October of 2022. Yes, in practical terms, it refers to MAGA, Make America Great Again, though carefully constructed language is wholly nonpartisan, an FBI officer told Newsweek. All right, so this is part of the problem. If you're a patriot, if you believe in America, what it stands for, what it should stand for, what it doesn't much stand for anymore, then you're a possible terrorist, a domestic terrorist. If you're religious, you're one of those, God and country people, or at least God people that, believes in the Bible, that believes that there's a right and there's a wrong. There's a set of rules that are universal, that a creator God made. Then, you're looked upon as some type of Neanderthal, not someone who's progressive, but actually, as Gavin Newsom called us in California, a regressive into the past, and believing such things as right and wrong. The Bible's the Word of God, and that Jesus Christ is the one way to get to the one God. Evidently, if we believe things like that, according to the Biden administration, we could be a terrorist just because of these religious beliefs. All right. The Bible makes it really clear what's going to happen at the time of the end with respect to the world, with respect to Christians, with respect to Jews, with respect to the United States, which is invisible, with respect to Israel, Russia, and the such like Iran. And we deal with this in our various books we have on Last Days Bible Prophecy and Bible Prophecy in general. So check out our website, Educating Our World. We have we have 65 books available for free download. 12 on Bible prophecy, including our book 25 Signs. We're near the end, where we list these signs that the Bible gives and show specifically how many of these predictions made so long ago have been literally fulfilled in our day and age, setting the stage for the events that will precede and then include the second coming of Jesus Christ to the earth. We're living in very, very exciting times, aren't we? All right, I'm Don Stewart. We'll be back tomorrow morning, Lord willing, with more breaking news. Until then, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.